I have a question. Is your content marketing connected to everything? Whose content marketing is connected to everything? If everything is connected to everything, then why isn't our marketing content connected to everything? It's time for smarter marketing through linked content. And here's how. To tell you how, I'll use Aristotle's rhetorical triangle, because what I do and what I want to share today is intricately woven with my practice, my research, and my verve for webbiness. A little about me, the ethos of the speaker. I have been writing for the web since 2010. So I'm a content writer who found the beauty of the semantic web. And since then, I'm thinking about intertextuality, about hypertext. I have a book called The Brave New Text, which is kind of old now, 5 years old, and I'm writing my new book called Being Dialogic. I'm also working with On2Text to help them build their knowledge graph out of marketing content. And I have a project which uses WordLift to create content based on a content graph and on a product graph. I also did some research and have a PhD thesis called Digital Marketing Communications Aspects of Content. And now let's step on the shoulders of a giant.
And I thought about how the water was moving around my fingers, opening on one side and closing on the other. And that changing system of relationships, where everything was kind of the similar, kind of the same, and yet different, that was so difficult to visualize and express. And just generalizing that to the entire universe, that the world is a system of ever-changing relationships and structures, struck me as a vast truth, which it is. And so interconnection and expressing that interconnection has been the center of all of my thinking. And all my computer work has been about expressing and representing and showing interconnection among writings, especially. And writing is the process of reducing a tapestry of interconnection to a narrow sequence. And this is, in a sense, illicit. This is a wrongful compression of what should spread out.
Indeed, everything is connected. Everything is deeply intertwined. The logos of my presentation would be the arguments about what I mean by linked content, why we need linked content now, and how we can do linked content, how we can connect our marketing to everything. What linked content? In the first place, structured. I want to read out Getty's definition of structured content, which reads, structured content means organizing and treating digital content like data, with the goal to establish a single source of content truth that enables us to create once, publish everywhere. What linked content? Published content. Our published content is going through that transition, which we have seen in the semantic web vision, theory, and practice, where we go from a web of documents to a web of data. And why wouldn't we do that when we publish content? We are to transition from a conventional CMS as the table here towards a semantic CMS, which is able to cater to the needs of that interconnectedness. And we do have good practices and research from 2012. Just a reminder about that book, where we can read about the requirements of a semantic CMS and see linked content in detail. What linked content? The imagined one. Let's do that. Let's do like they do it on the BBC channel. This is a screenshot from Reminder Hyperland, the 90s, Douglas Adams. That's Tom, the digital assistant um, of Douglas Adams there, who speaks about interconnected content. And of course, we have the trailblazing uh, BBC Olympics website, where we also can see what we talk when we talk linked content. And above all, of course, linked content is intertwined content. This slide is by Olaf Hartig. He presented a slide deck last year at Semantics. And he was talking about querying heterogeneous data with data federation. But the reason I put that here is for us to see how not only these graphs, let's call them graphs, are intertwined, but also the content is intertwined. And we know that this is intuitive. However, somehow legacy systems brought us to thinking that things are in tables, in silos, they're not connected. And that slide overflows to my second part here. Why linked content now? Why? Because we have an empowered user on the web. We have a lot more people researching, browsing, looking for information, and not being content with 5 ways how to date a Scorpio. They need information, and everything is connected today. To bring the point home, here's a customer. She doesn't need yet another blog post. She needs information. Her digital assistant needs data. So digital marketing, content, all these are to be conceived with that in mind, with that new environment, with that new connected Siberia. A blast from the past for you. A researcher back in 1998, that's a diagram of the consumer and how the consumer in cyberspace, they call that cyber market scapes. The consumer is a focal point where all kinds of data flows are converging. Think for yourself. Think about yourself, your phone. Everything is on your phone. If I read from here, food preparation management, children, schoolwork, education, emails, calendars, everything is on your phone. And that's a lot of data. And that's a lot of attention to pay to content. So in that scenario, why would I let your brilliant marketing, content marketing in my space, in my phone, among all the other stuff I get all the time. Speaking about spaces, let's move beyond the metaphor of the phone and go into the pod, the personal pod, the personal data space. Again, why would I let a company in my personal space? And vice versa. This is a link to BBC's development based on Solid, Tim Berners-Lee's initiative. Why would I give data to BBC so that they can build experiences for me? A reminder, the customer is not a moron. The pink is mine. She's your wife navigating the web. And she wants all the information you can give her, says Ogilvy. So how do we give information? How do we search for information? Why not give a collection of data? Re-enter the bag of chips. Again, if we think about the bag of chips from the perspective of a package where different messages, different parties have put various types of information on it. Yes, the front end has a marketing pitch, or this is the best chips ever, or whatever the messaging would be. However, at the back, we have linked data. We have data that is connected. We have data from various sources, which gives information. And this bag of chips is our way out of the scenarios where people don't pay attention to our marketing. Why? Because what information is that bearing? And when people don't pay attention to our marketing and to our campaigns, we are like a ship in the night. That's again Ogilvy's. If a marketing campaign doesn't contain a great idea, it will pass as a ship in the night. So how not to be a ship in the night? How not to be boring and ineffective with our content? Understand dialogue at schema.org and stir. And we're going to the how of linked content. Findable, useful, linked. You might recognize this. That's the principles of linked data. And I want to add something more here. Let's add dialogic to the data talk, together with the content talk. I put that here for reference. It's about dialogic communication. But if you are to leave tonight with something about dialogue and dialogic communication, please do with the concepts of openness, honesty, and ethical relationships with publics. A reminder, we're doing private business in a public battleground on the web. And we do have to make our content much more than pitches. We do have a socio-technical phenomenon to cater for. And our customers, reminder, who are not morons, do need information. So why not chunk our content as data objects and help them get that information easier? There's research from the 90s again, which started with the advent of the web. One of its most important articles is building dialogic relationships through the World Wide Web. There is a framework where we see what is dialogic orientation and then how this orientation can be translated into principles, operational dialogic communication. I put a diagram here for you to imagine that. Like for example, the usefulness of a website, what you need to have in order to live and walk the talk of a dialogue. What I did, and I want to share with you, and what I'm working on is doing that, getting that framework and enriching it with the idea of content, which I define as artifact of digital communication, and of course the practice of semantic annotation. So building dialogic relationships on the web of data. Schema.org being the low-hanging fruit for that. So a framework was born. And I hope Krishnamurti and Bohm would excuse my hubris. If you want to experience and see what dialogue is about, I recommend you to go there and explore that rabbit hole. So again, the principles of dialogic communication I mapped to corresponding marketing communications content, which I researched from 10 companies. And then I mapped that to schema.org types. This is the link, and you will have it. I put the link to my slides in the chat. This is how schema.org is used by these 10 companies, among which Apple, Microsoft, JP Morgan, on their websites, in parallel with dialogic principles. You can click and see the research results there in an Excel sheet. What I want to highlight here is that, yes, essential parts of their content is dialogic, adheres to the principles. Are semantic annotations dialogic? No, they're not. And if they are, they partially are. And they are when it comes to transactional relationships, meaning product data or contact data. And that we can go further. I want us to go further. And we can do that by working to, again, to map these principles with corresponding content and corresponding annotations. So instead of an epilogue, I want us, again, to go back, maybe in time, back to the future, with a quote from Negroponte, reminding you that a text should be imagined like a complex molecular model. And also, we are now in the position to make that molecular text connecting our marketing to everything. Why? Because knowledge graphs, which are assemblages of linked data, please have a look at the term assemblages. It's lovely. It very much resembles the knowledge graph definition. Again, knowledge graphs can hold the space for smarter marketing. So let's do linked content now. This dialogic content framework is open. You can comment on it, you can use it, abuse it, we really have a lot of work to do. And that's my website. You can see my LinkedIn profile there and my Twitter profile. Thank you for listening. And now we have, I guess, 4 minutes for questions.
Thank you so much, Teodora. That was great. Here we have a question from Andrea. Hi, Andrea, how's it going? How do you envision the application of the content framework, this .logic context?
I envision it by following the principles. I envision it by not making up new terms like I did with linked content, but rather, again, stepping on the shoulders of giants like Ted Nelson, but also like all the research that has been made talking about dialogic communication, because the web is a brand new environment and we cannot bring old marketing in there. And I know that this is super hard. I'm living that now. I mean, it's very hard to make teams work on that many layers of abstraction, first, and second, of serving the people, not serving your marketing manager, not serving your CEO because the message needs to be something or something else, serving the person who will be scanning your product, whose private prime time on their phone you will be using or inviting to connect.
Cool, thank you. And from Adam, we have this question. Semantic CMS, is this something we need to build from scratch, or can we use existing CMSs and hook them up to a knowledge graph? How do we get semantic CMSs practically? Thanks, Adam. That's obviously a question dear to
Yeah,
my
you eat a lot of mushrooms and then go into teams and start preaching. I mean, Adam, thank you for the question and kudos for all your work. um, yes, we need to build assemblages. Yes, we can hook, for example, WordPress to some other thing and do what we need, and that will be again step by step, little step by step. I have an example. Schema Up are now mapping the category of WordPress as about property, about schema.org property. And they're mapping the keywords to the WordPress tags. Again, to get back to Adam's question, we need to do something that content strategy people, I think, called metadata crosswalks. And we need to be aware what metadata we have. We can't avoid the talks in between ourselves. And then, yes, we build that um, step by step. And again, I don't think a semantic CMS is a screwdriver, which once we'll have, and then all the people will be using it. I believe we need to walk that way and deserve that semantic CMS.
Thank you so much, Teodora. I think we're now out of time. And actually, that last point was a great segue. I implore you to stick around for our next session with Gavin Mendel-Gleason of Terminus, who has evolved something of a semantic CMS.
Excellent.
So things flow. Thank you again, Teodora. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
See you around.